Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
I'm running on nothing but faith. There's things far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping 25 hours a day, but something good works out, and I'm just like, dang. Think everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm like, dang. Think you might just know the way. I'm like, dang.
Welcome to Dang.
Dang. Wait, where we at? Oh, we at Dang. Our podcast. Welcome, everybody.
Yes, today Todd and I are digging into how parents shape their kids' beliefs, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident.
Yeah, I could say on purpose. I knew when Spencer was born, he was going to be a coder. And I shaped him to a coder.
That was your, like, you had an objective.
I
You're
had
like,
an objective.
I want him.
Yes, and he had a computer at 1.5 to 2 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes, he used to play brain games on there. I just make him play brain
Wow.
games. That's why he's very smart.
Why did you want him to be a coder?
Because I knew that's the future. That's where the money's going to be. I got him in the entertainment business in the beginning because that's just to make some money for him when he turns 18. But I started him coding very early and following all through high school, all through that in college, and that's what his major was. And he loved gaming like I did, and because I could have been a coder, but instead I was doing television.
Well, and it was kind of, and the internet and all of that was really growing up along with you. So It was kind of like being developed as, it was almost like you couldn't have been that. You needed to be just a little bit younger to be able to ride that wave. So it makes sense.
It's just like some parents shape their kids to be football stars. Or
Yeah.
LeBron James' mother taught him to be a basketball star. So, you shape it, to where you want it.
What is one value or habit you picked up from your parents that still sticks with you today?
I think with me, I would probably say it's knowing that everything, like I didn't know what racism was until I moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles. My parents did not teach us that. So we thought that everything was fair and had to be fair, and that's the way it was. If you were a good person, you didn't get in trouble, no matter what color you were. If you did right, you can do things. And then it was a hard lesson to learn that my parents sheltered me.
Yeah, they were
the truth.
protecting you. Yeah. No, and actually racism is an interesting one to bring up because I think that is one that's really passed down, right?
Now it's definitely passed down, And I think that now more parents are teaching it to their kids so they don't pass it down to other,
right.
the wrong way.
That's part of this, the correction that needs to happen. And I think that, like we've talked about this before when we've tackled like the topic of racism, how it's almost like generationally we do some work and then some of it still stays there, because like I was brought up, my parents are not racist. I didn't understand how prevalent racism still was. It wasn't part of my experience, but you shared with me just how much was still existing.
Most of the everyday people that are not African American don't see it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just mainly around white people, you're never going to see it. Because you're never
and
going
if
to
you're not racist, like if you weren't brought up with that part of it,
you won't even
you
see
think
it.
it's gone.
What you think is when you see black people complain about it, you're like, oh my gosh, that person is nuts. How could they even think something like that? But because you weren't brought up around it.
Yeah. It's I think each generation having to root it out a little bit more.
And I think something else my parents taught me, my mom especially taught me, was whenever you start something, you have to finish it.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. And, you got to finish it, and I carry those values to my kids. You don't start something unless you're going to finish it. You can't start and quit. No such thing as quitters. You keep going. And I think that's what has driven me to my success was I did not stop. Even when it got hard, I just kept pushing until I kept getting over the hump. And even today in my life now, I have to do the same thing. I got to push harder. But the problem is I'm a little bit older. It's not easy to push as hard as I used to push when I was younger.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, well, whatever. I'd rather sit around anyway and watch some TV and play some video games. So I think that's one thing about my mom. She was a go-getter also. She was, out there. And she did, she moved up in life fast because of her energy, her power emotionally. And I think that's what I've been able to pass on to my kids.
So my dad, I remember in high school, I really wanted to be in student government. I don't even know why, like being part of like the student council that would plan the parties and do the assemblies and stuff. I can't tell you how many times I ran for student council. I think probably at least 7 times in high school that I ran for one of those offices.
Did you win?
Only once. I lost all of it because it's like a big popularity contest.
I was going to say it's a popularity contest.
Yeah, but the one time that I won was junior class president. And I remember when I was trying to decide which office I was going to run for that time, I was thinking about running for vice president. And I remember, I don't know if my dad was a part of the conversation or he'd walked in during the conversation, but he's like, why would you run for vice president? Why wouldn't you run for president? Like, don't go for this. Why would you go for vice when you could be the president? And I remember he basically was like, no choice anymore. It was like, no, you're running for president. And that stuck with me. That piece stuck with me more than even any of the experiences I had doing student government or being the junior class president. None of that stuck with me as much as my dad saying, why would you run for vice president? And that was something he did value. He always pushed us to be the best that we could be. He was like, why would you choose to settle for something less?
A lot of you guys and your family have chosen what your parents do, what they did.
Being self-employed, you mean?
Yeah, self-employed, but also being, accountants and stuff like that and, doing IRS stuff.
A couple of them, yeah. And they brought us up because it was a family business. We worked in it, right? So it made sense that we would have that kind of in our blood. I wish I'd gotten more of the accounting genes because I'm not very good at accounting. But I remember when we started off too as kids, we would licking stamps to put on the mailings. Like that was like the first job you had in the business, and it was the worst. Licking stamps.
That's why you you stop licking and you start using the
adhesive.
You use
a sponge.
A sponge, because
I know.
Licking is just after you finish licking, you're like.
I think in the beginning we were so young they wouldn't let us have a sponge because they didn't want us to get water all over everything.
Oh yeah, they didn't want you watering up the letter. That's why I wouldn't have gave you guys that.
But we would have to lick it and give them the stamp, and then we graduate to where we would lick it and put it right on the envelope. And it wasn't until we were older and more responsible that my dad showed us the sponge, and I remember thinking that was like the most genius thing I've ever seen.
Well, so what habits do you think you picked up from your parents?
Working hard. Like my parents really instilled in me. Not just like pushing, like I said, my dad pushing me to be the best I could be, but just to work hard, right? Like one of the worst things, I remember we had to go out in the backyard. We grew up, we had a big, almost an acre lot. And my parents, it was really admirable. I look back now and see what they kind of built to. They built that house that we lived in growing up themselves. Like my dad got a big, huge backhoe and dug the basement. They built it, and they built it in phases as they could afford it. Like a lot of my childhood, I remember the basement was unfinished, just like this dungeon, right? Because we just lived on the top floor, and then as we needed it, they built the basement. And I even remember our top floor being like that press board that was painted because they couldn't afford flooring. And our kitchen, in my memories, so it's got to have been, I think up until I was even school age, was these cabinets that my dad would find just like from the sides of the road or from people getting rid of, that was cobbled together. I remember they were different colors, and the countertops were like these different slabs they had somehow pieced together. They were really hardworking, and they had a dream and a vision of what they wanted, and they built it. But part of helping with that dream as a kid, we'd have to go out in the backyard. It was just dirt. And I remember sifting through rocks. Like we had to gather all of the big rocks so that they could do some sort of landscaping or something. But I remember looking at that vast, almost acre lot and going, how are we going to ever move all of the rocks out of this yard? And the dirt getting crusted on my feet. I hated that, man.
Yeah, let me tell you. We had that one time in Baldwin Hills we lived in. Our pool, we had a flood. It was a mudslide. And the entire pool got filled up full of mud.
Oh.
And this is in the 70s. Our parents weren't going to hire nobody to get it out. We had to get it out. The kids.
What did you use, like buckets? Or?
No, we used shovels to throw it up, put in the buckets and taking and dumping it out back to the hill. So, we got a lot of our friends.
I can't
and it took us a
imagine
couple
how long
weeks,
that
and
would
we all
have
did.
taken. Oh my goodness.
We had to dig it all out.
That is rough,
It's
man.
like, my dad didn't care I was on TV. I had to help. That's just how it was.
You just okay, so I read the Will Smith autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really good. I recommend it. But one of the things he talks about growing up, his dad had him and his brother build a wall out of bricks, like Mason build this wall. And he remembers with disdain, this work he had to do. And I'm not even sure if the wall, because it sounds like it took forever for them to build the wall. And it's one of those things where I think his dad might have just been having them do it just to teach them to work hard.
Yes, and that's the thing that it's like we had chores in our house, and you couldn't get out of them. I mean, my dad literally woke me up one time. I didn't pick up the dog poop. And I had to be at work about, I think it was 8 a.m. in the morning.
And this is when you're an actor on TV.
He woke me up at midnight and said, hey, you didn't clean up the dog poop. Get out there and clean it up. I'm like, oh, yeah. Get out there and clean it up. Where are you going to get it? I'm like, so I'm out there at 12 o'clock at night, freezing, trying to get all the dookie together. But I tell you what, never forgot it another time like that.
Yeah.
Always did it early, you know? And I think that we have to definitely instill in our children to work hard, to get things done. Because I think sometimes kids linger around and don't get work done they're supposed to get done. And I think that hurts us as adults. We want to make sure kids can do that so they can push that into their next life. I mean, how did your parents shape your brothers' lives? And your whole family, how did that happen?
I think it's a lot of the same stuff like what I'm remembering, where even once the yard was in and we had grass and a nice yard, we still had to get out there and pick the weeds.
Oh yeah.
We still had to. I remember having one of those little things that you would stick down and get the weeds. I hated picking weeds. It was seriously the worst.
Is that why you're an artist? Is that why you chose into designing?
So I didn't have to pick weeds in the backyard? Definitely. I would do almost anything to get out of picking weeds.
Well, you guys pick weeds over your house.
Oh, at my house, yeah. I sometimes will when it gets really bad, but I got a yard guy now.
Yeah, I ain't getting out there picking nothing.
Did you guys have weeds
Yes.
you had to pick at your?
The garden was kept up by us.
Yeah,
the
there was
front
no
yard.
there was no landscaper coming.
No. And then we finally got a guy, I think when I was older, and I can tell you the funniest story. We were young. I think I was like 12 or 13. My brother was 15 or 16. Yeah, no, I was 11, and we were gonna get a maid, right? Because we were working so much, it didn't have time to really do things, and the maid would do it. She would be a live-in maid. She'd do everything. My mom brought in this first maid. She was 19 years old, and she saw me and my brother and she goes, "Nope, you gotta go."
How long was she there?
She was there for like 10 minutes. That was it.
That
you gotta
really?
go.
It was only 10 minutes.
And my mom said, "You gotta go." She saw us like, "Nah, heck no." And then
What did the next maid look like?
next maid, 72 years old, and that's the maid we ended up with.
72?
Yeah, she did a great job though. She worked hard.
Really? Are you sure
Towel.
she was actually 72 and she wasn't more like 50 and you just thought she was 72 because you were a teenage boy?
That could have been it too. Because you think people look older. Well, it's like now people don't. When I tell them I'm 60, they think I'm crazy. Like, no, you're not. Because I don't look 60, but let me tell you, I feel 60.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So at any rate, she was not attractive to you and your brother.
No. So it made good thing. She didn't have to worry about. She had nothing to worry about.
I can see your mom doing that.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
like, I'm bringing home this nice lady. She's gonna help me clean the house. And then you two, all of a sudden it hits her a ton of bricks. Like, oh, this is not gonna work out well.
Not gonna happen. She was gone. We're like, well, Mom.
When was that? Was that about when your mom was going through the divorce?
No. That was
before?
That was before.
Yeah.
But it was, like I said, I was like 11. My brother was like, I think 16, I think. He was 16.
Because I was going to say the divorce, that's actually when I got a yard person. I didn't have a landscaper before that, but it was just too much.
Yeah.
Like going through that, being a single mom and trying to juggle all the household stuff, having a landscape person, that was... Well, I didn't have a lot of money either, but I was like, I cannot do that.
I can honestly
labor.
say the amount of pressure the kids put on you I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
Because I would lose my mind. And I'm losing my mind every day, and I'm not even their real parent.
Yeah.
And I have to hide out. You do a lot for your kids, a lot more than I've ever seen a lot of mothers do.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about this generation too, because we're a little bit of a generation. We're in a little bit different generations.
Well, I think I think the kids are needier now, way needier than we have ever been. It's like I don't remember asking my mom to make me food. I remember if I was hungry, I went there and made it myself and just walked on out and ate it.
Well, I'm teaching them. I don't make the food for all of the kids. Like they fend for themselves quite a lot, actually. But I do. Rocky is still. He's not even 12. He's 11, and I'm still teaching him. He still does a lot on his own, but he is. You're right. When we're talking to like doing stuff on the stove or working with the blender, he's still a little bit shy of those kinds of things. But I think that developmentally is appropriate. There's a book, actually. I'm going to link to it in the show notes because this was a really eye-opening book. I remember I encountered it right after I started homeschooling, and it was one that it kind of outlines what sort of tasks it's reasonable to expect a kid to do at different ages. And it was actually really surprising. It got me thinking about things that I hadn't even thought about teaching and having them do for themselves. Like, I think it was something like, by the time that they were 5, they should be able to make their own sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
And but it like does that. It breaks down chores and other things like that. And it was really helpful. So I can't remember, the name is escaping me right now. But I'm going to link to it in the show notes.
The reason why I know that's the case is because we were able to do things kids today can't do too. Okay.
Yeah.
When you got home, you go outside. You had to be home before the street lights on. But if you were hungry, you didn't have any money on you. You go home, go in there and make a sandwich because my mom's not gonna stop to make me a sandwich. She's like, yeah, no matter what age I was, she's like, you better get in there and make you a sandwich. You want to get something to eat? She goes, because she's busy working. She's busy teaching somebody doing what she had to do. So I'd go in there and, make my own sandwich and then put it in a plastic bag. And if I wanted to take it outside and go with me, I put it in a plastic bag, put it in my pocket and go outside back riding the bike with my friends. And, and you had something to eat. Or also because the neighborhood was very well connected. You knew everybody. All of us kids that lived in the neighborhood, we all hung out together, and you eat at different people's houses. You'd be at somebody's house, and they'd be like, I'm hungry, you guys. Well, boys, make a sandwich, blah, blah. You make food there, and then you can go out.
Yeah.
That's why in our community, sandwiches are big time. A sandwich in the black community is huge. That's why we make everything into a sandwich. What's that? Make that into a sandwich. What's that? Make a sandwich. Make a sandwich. It's like
have you ever seen those sandwich makers where you put them in and you like clamp it down and we used to do that with leftover spaghetti. It was, seriously, I don't know why we always had so much leftover spaghetti at our house. Yes, you would take sourdough bread, butter it, and you put it in this, it looked like a waffle maker kind of.
Yeah, and you squish sandwich
and you put the leftover spaghetti in it, and you squish it down. They were so good, these spaghetti sandwiches that we would make. Okay, but you made me think of something that was sort of weird when you said about snacks. So in my house growing up, you were not allowed to have a snack that you had to go into the pantry or the freezer for. Right? Like if it was in the freezer or if it was stored away in the pantry, you couldn't go get it without asking permission. Like mom would leave stuff on the counter, like there'd be fruit on the counter or the leftovers from last night would be in the fridge. It was very clear boundaries of like what you were allowed to just eat by yourself because I was hungry and what you had to ask permission for. And it was so funny. I remember there was a point when my kids were getting older and more independent where they were making themselves something and they'd gone in the fridge and they'd opened a package of some new thing and they had cooked it. And I had gotten like upset and offended because I was like, how dare you go in there, open the package, start a whole new thing. I don't remember what it was. It was probably some sort of a treat. Like, I don't know, can't remember. But I remember I was reacting to a rule that didn't exist in the household I'd raised them in, but it existed in mine growing up. So I was like, no, that's off limits. You're not allowed to go in the freezer and open it and get stuff out. And I was like, wait, that was a rule from my childhood growing up.
You didn't like
I
that
never
rule?
made that rule with the kids. And so I had to reevaluate and decide if that was going to be a rule. We actually don't carry that rule. No, that's not. I think I narrowed it down to, hey, you can't open a package unless you talk to me. Because I don't want it to be like, hey, I bought that for this meal that we're going to have, and now it's gone, right? Like tortillas. I was saving these. We were going to have fajitas on Thursday, and now the tortillas are all gone. So now it's like, if you're going to open a package, you got to talk to me. But other than that, it's, they're more independent. But it's funny that you sometimes have these things that come from your origin.
Oh, yeah.
That, anyway.
Oh, yeah, I definitely believe that. Well, I was taught that, you don't leave just a little bit of milk in there. You don't do that unless you got another gallon of milk somewhere.
That's one of your pet peeves with my kids, right?
Well, that one, but also it's like, if you used all the butter up, just get another stick of butter out there and put it in.
I don't know why it is, because I don't remember ever having a talk with the kids about don't finish it. But it's almost like they're afraid. It's almost like they're afraid to finish it. Like you're saying, they're leaving you just this little bit of milk.
But it's like that's a waste of time because you can't even have a bowl of cereal.
I know, and you look in the fridge and think it's there.
Yeah, and you go, oh yeah, and you get it out, and you're like, you pour the cereal because you usually pour the cereal before you get the milk. You pour the cereal, and then you be like,
there is not enough here.
And then you go and you look. And you're like, oh.
We don't have a backup.
Why didn't somebody tell me? Or say it before it got low so we can go out and get it. And that's my thing is just in today's world, information is everything.
Yeah.
If you give us the information that, hey, we don't, don't have any milk. Of course I'm going to get milk because you didn't even drink real milk when I first moved in. You guys drank all that other
almond milk because I have a milk intolerance. But
almond is not almond milk. It's almond juice.
I really like that almond
real milk
juice that I get.
Milk.
So I did actually make that a rule with the kids where I said, if you use something up, you have to come tell me.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise I won't know that it's gone.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know. Maybe that's why they're leaving the milk, so they don't have to go through the effort to go and tell me.
Yeah, but it's easier for me. It's easy to go get. It's only a hop and a skip and a walk. It ain't like the store is 80 miles away. It's like a minute. I think with what I want to ask you though is I know what traditions your childhood you've passed on, right? And which ones have you left behind?
For the holidays. Well, we talked about that on the Christmas episode, how I loved the tradition of singing Happy Birthday to Jesus, but I did not love my mom's Christmas morning cake, so we do cinnamon rolls instead. What other traditions? I don't know. I loved... When I think of traditions, I think of stuff related to holidays, right? So that's naturally where my mind is going. And I love a lot of the traditions that my family had. Like for Easter, we would do these egg fights where we would hard boil the eggs like people do and color the eggs, decorate them. But then on Easter morning, it was one of my favorite family activities we would look forward to, where you would have the egg and you would... we would take turns. I think it's a German tradition, if I remember right, from what my mom has told me. Somebody holds an egg and somebody is the hitter, and you take the eggs and you hit the small end to small end, and whichever one breaks, they're the loser and they have to eat their egg. But so things like that, I love all those things. They've been a big part of my adult life. I've tried to make them. I felt like they were so wonderful that I really wanted them to be a big part of my kids' life. So my whole pagingsupermom.com, that blog that I worked on for a lot of years, it's basically dedicated to family traditions because there were so many that I loved. And that
it's like my kids were down here for this Christmas, this holiday, which was great.
Yeah.
But I don't think they won't be down here next year. They'll probably go to their mother's house or somewhere else. So, I don't mind the trade-off. You know what I mean? It's fine. I get that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But just imagine when you have large families. You know what I mean? That's got to be so difficult. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, our family Christmas morning, it was 9 of us. My parents had 7 kids. And to us, I can't imagine the preparation my mom had to go to. I was oblivious to all that she was putting in, and now I'm a mom with just 4 kids.
And
And this year we had the 6 because we had Bo and Spencer, but it was... I was just like, I have a whole new level of respect for my mom.
And let me tell you, I had forgot. I have a lot of respect for you. I had forgotten how tough kids were. I mean, because, when your kids grow up, you're like, my patience was gone, and then I marry you and move in, and I'm like, man, I don't have no patience anymore.
Well, it's funny, when we were dating, I remember you being fine with the 4 kids, and I was like, really? Because I kind of thought that was a little bit of a hurdle, But you're like, nah, I'm good with kids. It's going to be easy. The problem was that you had Spencer full-time and Bo only part of the time. You had no reference for what 4 kids was going to be like.
But also, it's...
So that's why you were like, it's easy.
Yeah, but our parenting is different. That's the style of it, and I understand.
Oh, honey, it's different. Parenting is part of it. Maybe 5%, but 95% is because there's 4 of them.
Yes, but also you need a parent who's not at the strongest, but can be the bob and weaver, and you need a parent who's just strong.
You're right. Parenting is meant to be a team venture.
It's like they know, okay, if I ask mom this will be fine, blah, blah. I ain't asking dad, because dad going to say no off the top. No. And then what'd your mother say? She said, no. Then that's why you asking me.
Right. There's a Jim Gaffigan special on Netflix, I think, where he talks about parenting a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, one of the bits is like, he's like, it's like the kids divided up. He's like, okay, who's going to annoy them from 12 to 2?
Yes.
I'll take the shit from 2 to 4.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure with you, it's easy. With me, I scared them. So they don't know what to get from me, because they're like, this dude is nuts. But it's like, I'm a big teddy bear. But you have to follow certain rules, and that's all I'm with. But it's easy, And I think with you, I see, like I said, you do a lot. You do a lot more than I guess I can say my ex did the same thing with Spencer.
I think it's just ×4, babe. It's a big part of it. It's the ×4.
But it's the stuff you go up, you do. It's amazing. It's like you go the extra mile. I'm saying you go the extra mile. Even if it's going to tire you out, you will go the extra mile. And that's rough.
Okay, I appreciate that you say that, but I also have to confess that a big part of what I did over on Paging Supermom, and I've kind of been through that transformation, I liked to say that I was practically impractical. And what I mean by that is that I had this ideal of what I wanted to be as a mom. A lot of it was based on my own mother. My mom is amazing. And based on how she raised 7 children, and then, there obviously, I didn't want to be exactly like her. There were things I wanted to do differently.
Yeah, there's things you throw away from
But I had this vision of what the kind of mom I wanted to be. And then I had kids. And I realized just how difficult it was going to be to create that. That was actually the whole impetus behind calling my blog, Paging Supermom. Actually, when I started the blog, I had a pal that did it with me, a friend. And we called it Paging Supermom because one of the things that we would do is we would get together. We'd have play dates with our kids. And she and I had a very similar ideal of what this supermom life was going to look like. How we kind of laughed and got along in this idea that we had both thought we were going to be this type of mom up here before we had kids. And then once we had kids, we realized how difficult it was going to be the kind of mom we actually had wanted to be. And so on our play dates, we would commiserate about how tough it was, and we would share these little moments when we kind of felt like we were super moms. We were like, I did this, and I totally felt like I was getting to that level that I had wanted, right?
It was like, go ahead, keep going.
That was the beginning of the transformation. And actually the blog was called Supermom Moments when we started it, where we were sharing these little things that had made us feel super in, I think, hopes that maybe it would help guide other moms to feeling a little bit more super. And then we transformed for, we changed it to Paging Supermom because Supermom Moments, there's the mom together. It was a hard URL for people to kind of parse. And anyway, so we switched to this Paging Supermom, and we started realizing, actually we went really overboard. We started putting out content that was amazing. It was exquisite. It was beautiful. And it was not necessarily the most achievable. And that started to become a big thread that we would start to pull on is, hey, as Pinterest started to blow up, like when we started the blog, Pinterest didn't exist. And now as Pinterest started blowing up, things got to be crazy. People wanted, what you started to want for your dream life, it was, I don't know why, that was like an impetus for changing a lot of those things. And it actually started to make me do a little bit of backing off and thinking, what of this is actually doable, right? And how do I take stuff and make it more doable? So this practically impractical journey started to form where I was trying to do stuff that wasn't really about practicality. It was that extra stuff for holidays or fun, but I was doing it in a way that it was achievable. That was where the practical came in.
But how long did it take you to learn what was practical?
It was a long journey because when I did Adelie's 7th birthday, so Adelie's 20 now.
That a lot of parents probably are involved in the same thing, realizing what's practical and what's impractical.
Right. And when Adelie was 7, she's 20 now, right? But when she was 7, I threw a birthday party for her. You can go find it on the blog. It was beautiful. It was an Egyptian princess themed birthday party. I was really into birthday parties. I love throwing events. I'm a designer. It was just really stimulating and fun for me. But I went overboard. I was literally trying to get camels to come to the party.
You're not really?
For real. I built a tent in the backyard. You got to go to Paging Supermom and search for the Egyptian princess party so you can see what I'm talking about.
Way too far.
I didn't realize it
I'm
at
gonna
the
get
time.
camels in the backyard.
I did. No, I called the Phoenix Zoo to try to see if I could like rent the camels to come to our house for the party.
Oh my gosh.
They of course said no.
Yeah, no.
Did you know I found camels? I did. They were in Tucson, which is about 2.5 hours from here. I found somebody who would let me. They were just like, this crazy. They were like, you can borrow them. They probably thought I was insane, and they were like, this crazy lady wants to borrow our camels. They were offered to let us use them for free, but I had to figure out how to get them from Tucson to my backyard.
That's too much.
And it was at that point that I finally was like, you know what? I have a feeling that this party is going to be amazing, even if I don't get the camels.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's what you have to realize. Kids are happy. Just the fact that, you know, you're doing something for them. You can, as long as you put your heart into it, they're going to be happy.
Yes.
You don't have to throw the extra pie on top of the pie for them to feel like my mom. It's just the fact that you're doing it for them.
Right.
Makes them go, okay, my parents.
That party was a turning point for me. After that, I started to pay attention more. I still was going a little overboard, but I was paying attention to what things, like based on how much time it took me to do this, what was the payoff? How much did the kids appreciate it? Did they talk about it afterwards? And it almost became a little bit like an experiment over the next few years of tracking what things really hit and were worth the effort, and then limiting it. And I have a party planning worksheet that I share on the blog, Paging Supermom. I actually think it's a tool I still use every time I'm going to plan a party, because it helped me to basically harness the power of Pinterest and all these crazy ideas, but then turn it into something that was practical and achievable. Yes. And that whole blog, I think that's why I don't have as much content that I put out new. Like, I keep it fresh over there because there's so many great ideas. It's filled with stuff. Like, if you love holidays and want to do stuff with your kids, you should check out Paging Supermom. But I don't update it as much anymore because I think I completed that journey, right? I learned what I needed to learn from that, and things moved in a different direction as I went through my divorce. It shifted my focus so much away from like the jovial, carefree.
But I always tell people this: make your goals achievable.
Yeah.
Don't set these out like this year I'm gonna do this. Next year I'm gonna be going to the moon. That ain't achievable for the next year. That may be achievable in 6 years, 7 years. But so I set my goals. See, the reason why I've been having a harder time lately, I haven't been setting my little daily goals. I haven't been doing that. Like, I need to do this and this and this and this, and then I feel like I've accomplished my day. So I'm just sitting there like I'm lost.
Yeah, you feel lost when you don't have something.
And being lost for me has given me a situation where I'm hurting myself by not planning, because I know how to keep from being bored. I know how to keep, by just doing little things to keep myself going.
Have a purpose for each thing. And I think you're right that just as much as having no goals can drain you, if your goals are too unreasonable or too unrealistic.
And sometimes kids' goals are unrealistic.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's a way.
We have to teach them how to have realistic goals so that their future becomes bright and not dim.
We do have to kind of identify, I guess, a little bit. There is nothing wrong with having these big dreams.
No, there isn't.
But when we're talking about goals, we're talking about breaking it down into something that is achievable.
Yes.
And giving you measurable steps on the way to your dream, your big dreams. There's nothing wrong with having these big, hairy, unreasonable, crazy dreams goals. But like when you're talking about executable stuff.
If I say I want to be in astrophysics, then I need to get involved in math.
Right.
Seriously involved in math.
Right. You have to break it down. We talked about that when we talked about our goal setting episode for the new year.
And I think for kids sometimes, I think they don't realize that their lives can be a lot easier if they plan their day.
Yeah.
Just plan your day, of what you need to do. I need to get up, do school, I do this, I do that. And then life goes easier. And like right now, like for me, I have to restart again because somehow I've gotten lost.
It was probably the holidays. It kind of gets you out of your schedule.
I got lost in everyone else's shuffle.
Oh.
So my shuffle wasn't there because I was lost in everyone else's shuffle. That's the thing about having a lot of kids around. Sometimes you're just caught up in what everybody else is doing. You're not really doing what you should be doing. But I think like now, usually I'm Piper's morning thing. You know that, right? I wake Piper up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I remember you always saying, be gentle, which is like, you know, very difficult. So I go, good morning, Piper. It's 7:15. And I turn her light on and I walk out. You know?
Because I've talked to your sister and your kids both about this. You can wake people up really abruptly. Yeah. And I have experienced it. And it's very jarring.
Well, I was shocked this morning that.
Is that how your dad would wake you up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this episode, we're trying to talk about how parents shape us. I wonder if that is.
Get up, fool. Pop, pop. Yeah,
really?
So, but I will tell you
Did your mom wake you up ever?
Yeah. But she was always, his mom.
She was nicer.
Yeah. But I will tell you, what's interesting is I'm watching now and seeing some of this stuff, and I get some other stuff you're saying, and I watch it. That's why I've been a lot more gentle with that. And I figured out, okay, yeah, it does work better when you're a little more gentle with them. And then, you know, it's the whole thing about women. You know, it's a whole different ball game with women than it is with boys.
Well, and that's why I think it's interesting. I remember towards the start of the year, you were talking about how you're trying really hard to not be so vengeful.
I'm still vengeful.
And I think that's something you got from your dad too.
Probably.
Because your mom is not vengeful at all.
No.
But
my mom would let it go.
But I do.
But my mom will do like you, let people walk on her sometimes before she finally would break and get upset.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on trying to be better about standing my ground a little bit better. But I think it's interesting what you just said about the man and the woman, that as much as your dad hurt you and as much as you didn't want to be like him, I think that because you had this male example and this female example, right, as a boy, you couldn't help but have knit into your fabric some of his characteristics. And I think the vengeance is part of that.
I think I think the vengeance came from all the stuff that was done to me. It's like I couldn't do things back because it was the police department or it was somebody, you know, a higher situation. But so as I got older and became a little tougher, then it's like, if you slap me in the face, I'm gonna slap you back.
Well, but you know what's interesting about that, honey, is it doesn't even matter that it was the police department or anybody else. You really can't do stuff back. I remember feeling like that even when I was going through what I went through, that I was like, you know what? I can't do anything to pay them back, right? Like when my ex, he had cheated. So when I was thinking about these other women or him, you know, like, of course, laughing with my girlfriends, we should get some red spray paint and go over there. Or like the Carrie Underwood song that she talks about all that stuff she did to beat up his truck, right? But the reality is you can't do any of that. I mean, it's against the law.
No, it's
destruction of property.
If your name, let me tell you how it's not. If your name is on that car also, it's your property too.
I get it.
And you can beat it up if you want to.
I get that in the Carrie Underwood.
You can't do it if
but
it's
I
not.
couldn't do it. And you know what I ultimately ended up deciding to do with the other one? I will never speak with them ever. I won't do anything because I was like, nothing I can do will capture to the fullest extent what I really think they deserve. So I'm like, I just got to leave it to God to do. And I never spoke to him. I never did anything.
Sometimes I know you want to see something happen to him back. But the thing about it is,
you do want it, I think that's a human.
It's a human thing, but you're not supposed to even think that.
Well, it's a human thing that I don't think we're meant to act on. I think we're meant not to. Vengeance isn't a quality that I think we should.
I try not to, but if you keep pushing me too much, I will say, vengeance is Todd's, saith the Lord.
That is not what he says.
I know that.
He's not what he says.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But I'm like, vengeance is Todd, saith the Lord.
I remember thinking that was really amazing, that you had actually embraced a desire to try to let that go.
I'm trying, but it's rough. It's like I think for me, like I said, I'm in a weird situation. Especially this year. Like I lost my mom last year, who was like, my mom was my cement for everything.
Right.
Losing her, like when I lost my dad, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh, he's gone. Gee, thank God. But my mom, it got to me and it took me to a whole different level.
Yeah.
And I think, cause right now I'm feeling completely out of sorts. I don't know what's going on with me right now, but for me, being a recovering addict, we have to figure out, like, no one can help me find out what I'm really feeling. I have to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I realized yesterday I'm feeling a lot of discontent. Like, I'm feeling like I'm just here. Like, I'm here for this reason, and I have no other reason to do anything else. So yesterday it really hit me where I was like, oh, man,
I know you couldn't even game yesterday.
No, I couldn't game. I didn't want to game. I didn't want to do anything. I was like, So I finally, went to the mall. And I sat at the mall for like an hour and a half, just watching people go by on my phone. Then I got up, walked around, and normally I get a Cinnabon. I didn't even want a Cinnabon. I wasn't even hungry.
You didn't want a Cinnabon. That's serious, man.
So then I walked around more, and I said, oh, you know something? I said, let me go buy food for the family. Now, let me ask you a question. Out of all the things, that's what I ended up doing, and then buying the kids' favorite things.
It's because you are a good person.
No, that's lunatikish is what that is. That's lunatikish.
Well, that was your mom.
Yeah, it was.
That was you channeling your mom.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably was.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think that, like, where I come from, respect is the biggest thing in the world for us. It's like when that is gone, you have nothing else.
Yeah.
Because I think all black people, we have to respect ourselves and be respectful.
What does respect look like to you? Because I think that is probably a breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's because, okay, I'm not going to challenge your dad. It will be a fight. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'll back down to him.
So being like, even if you know straight up, like, I got proof right here that he is wrong,
I won't say it.
I will just sit it down, and that's respect to you.
Yes, because he's your father. First of all, he's my father-in-law, and I don't have the right to say something to him.
Not that my dad was wrong. No. Just want to clarify, because my dad's really smart.
He's been wrong once or twice. He is really smart, though. But he's been wrong once or twice.
I love how well you guys get along.
Yeah.
But it's because of the respect.
Yes. And
I gotcha.
And it's, with your mom, it's the same thing. No matter what if your mom started cussing at me, I wouldn't say anything back to her. I'd be like, okay, I'm sorry, and walk away. And
my kids are not like that.
I know. and they challenge me sometimes. And that's not a good thing. You don't challenge someone who you're going to lose to. It's like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That is really interesting, because I think that it does come down to a definition of respect. It's interesting to hear you describe respect.
If I was their father, I wouldn't have that issue.
Well, I think they would be different people.
Yeah, but
if you were their father.
Have you seen Bo and Spencer? They don't.
But can I explain to you my definition of respect now? Yes. Because I think that's the issue, is that we have these different definitions, right? So to me,
and that definitely mine came from my parents.
Yeah.
That's where mine came from.
Absolutely.
But I don't understand how your parents were the same way, but you don't have that.
Because I believe that the ultimate sign of respect is wanting to know what somebody thinks, caring about how they view the world and their opinion. And I can ask questions of them and get information from them, like almost like a healthy, non-confrontational debate.
If it's done respectful.
So,
not screaming at the top of your lungs.
Right, I believe that it should be done respectful, but I think that the issue is that I have raised my kids to question and to look at the world and be more independent. And it's a little bit of a different view than how I was raised, to not question that, like that whole idea of like, you don't speak till you're spoken to at the dinner table. You wait to ask questions. But that idea that kids are at this level of deference to their parents is very lost. It's gone, right? Like in anything in our generation now, the one that we're parenting now, these kids have been elevated almost above the parents, right? And I've seen that, and that's not what I was trying to do with my kids, because I didn't want that sort of, I tried to be very deliberate and thoughtful in blending what my parents did, because I felt like there was good from them, but I also felt like they needed more explanations. They needed more of the whys. And we've talked about that.
Well, yeah, I think the kids definitely need the whys.
And I think that created, as a byproduct, a situation where they don't act the same kind of respectful. Because there's times that I'll let it go further. You have a much higher boundary line. Because, if I'm wrong and they got the proof right here, I've told my kids, if mom tells you to do something and you think it's crazy and wrong, you are allowed to one time interject and say, mom, but you have to do it respectfully. You can't yell it at me.
Yes.
But our rule was you can respectfully disagree one time. And then if I still insist, you need to shut your mouth and do what I say. They're not really that great at that. They aren't. But that is the rule. That is the boundary that I had tried to create with them.
Well, I think
because I didn't love this idea that I'm the mom and I say so.
Well, no, I just think that because you were a single mom. See, I think
maybe that's why it went off the tracks.
Yes,
because I think
that
this was how I had been parenting them from the beginning. I didn't change.
No, but it went off track because that's why you have to have one parent that's like this, and you're the other parent who always stands the ground. Like your dad always, no matter what, he's going to stand behind your mom.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
So when if you guys were yelling at your mom, you come in and go, what are you, because he didn't like your mom to yell. So your mom knew if she raised her voice to an octave, here comes dad.
Well, and do you remember how I said I was reacting to the kid going into the freezer and getting something out? And I was like, oh, I realized that was a rule of my household. They've never been taught that rule. I think that's the problem you're running into, where you have this sense of disrespect that you feel that they don't understand because they were never taught it.
And I do understand that part.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Interesting.
But what I know, like a lot of times what I've learned is I give warnings.
Yeah.
Like I'll say blah, 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 blah. And then I'll say blah, 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 blah. And I go blah, 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 blah.
Maybe we need to sit the kids
blah,
down.
Blah, blah, blah. Then I go blah. Then everybody's like, I'm like, well, I gave you 5 warnings.
Right.
You better chill with me right now because I ain't having it. And you kept going.
We probably should talk to them about what your definition of respect is. We probably need to give them some of that.
Probably.
That'd probably be helpful.
But I think that the kind of respect that I'm talking about, it carries you into the world.
Yeah.
It's what you do. It's like the respect you have for your boss.
Yeah.
You can't go tell your boss says do this. I ain't doing this. Blah 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 blah. And he'd be like, you're fired.
Exactly.
So
you're right. You're right.
Boss says do something. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go do it. You go do it. Here you are. Now it's different if he asks you to do something illegal. You say, I'm not doing something illegal, man. Sorry. I ain't doing it. I quit. You know what I mean? But once you do your job, you do it without talking back. And for me, what I've learned is it makes us better people.
Yeah.
And I understand completely what you're saying, but I'm learning what I'm learning now is sometimes when I see something, I'm not saying nothing at all. I won't say anything. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And that's not a good thing either. But that's the trail that I've turned to. And in the last couple of days, it's because I'm like, it ain't worth it going through all this. I don't feel like fighting with anybody anymore. I'm just going to be like, that ain't right, but we shouldn't play with that knife. You may get cut. Sorry. Oh, you got cut. Oh, that's terrible. Better call your mom. See, and I don't want to get to that point, but I'm getting to that point where I'm starting not to care. Yeah. And that's not a good thing either. Yeah. It's not a good thing. And I think as a parent for you, being divorced, you have to do a lot of different stuff because you're by yourself. Yeah. You're based virtually by yourself. Well, like I said,
I used to focus on holidays and fun and birthday parties and whatever, and my focus had to completely change.
Yeah.
Right?
And I get it because my mom went through the same thing. Yeah. I get that. That's why I understand your position. I get it. But my mom, the difference was when my mom went through all that, we already had those grounds with my mom.
Well, you were a lot older. You were like 17 when your mom got divorced, right?
But when all this started happening, we were like 14, 15. Yeah.
Well, and you guys had already kind of created your own little culture of how, like you said, you talk about the garage door.
We were able to leave.
Yeah.
We were able to leave. The thing is, we were able to go outside all day.
Yeah, and get away from your dad and
if things were going bad, we can get away outside with our friends. Yeah. That's the difference. Today, literally with so much crap going on, we're stuck. Yeah. It's like different. After 2020, most people are doing things inside their house. Yeah. They don't walk that much. Like you go to the grocery store, you may go do that, or you go do something like that. Otherwise, you're just at home. Yeah. Because because even
work, so much work has become virtual. You're right. You're right.
So it's changed our dimensions of what things are like. I think that for all of us as adults growing up, we have to pick what we're going to do and what's good and what's the bad. You throw away. Like there's a lot of things with my father that I am not, and I will never be like that. And I made sure that I was a good father with my kids, close to them, talk with them, I'm very giving with them, like I am with your kids, But there's times like when Spencer gets mad. There's times he gets mad, but when Spencer gets mad, I go, and he knows when I do that, he's like, Dad, sorry, Dad. It's like, it's all right. You know, because I understand, but he's an adult. I can't really, there's really no more parenting I can do. He's an adult. Yeah. You know, 25, 26, I can't do much more. I can say one time, hey, it might not be a good idea to do that. You know, you should probably do this. But I think with all of our kids, though, what I do like about it is the joy they do have. That's the thing about kids I like watching is the joy. The joy of watching a show. The joy, you know, I know they have a good time when they watch shows with you. You know, you are their everything because you are their everything. You understand what I mean? You're there constantly. Me coming in the mix, came into the mix, and I'm sure it shook all of them because it's like, what's going on? What's my mom doing? You know, and I think that eventually everything will be okay. It's going to take time. I do believe. And that's what I know that I'm in this for the long haul, but it's going to take time. It's not going to be overnight. 2 years ain't enough. No. It's going to take about 4 or 5 years to know who I really am, where they see that I'm not leaving or going somewhere, and then when they figure out, then I think everything will kick in then. So we'll see what happens.
Well, dang. I think we had a breakthrough today.
We had a
that
big
was
breakthrough.
Good.
It was very good. A good episode.
All right. Well, we will see what next week brings.
What is next week?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Will we be here next week on the same bat channel, the same dang podcast? We'll see you next week. Yes. Bye-bye. This podcast is produced by my wife, Bettijo Bridges, in collaboration with Pop Populi, and edited by our daughter, Adelie Ann.
She is also the musician responsible for our theme music, so go check out Adelie Ann wherever you stream your music. Have a question or topic you want us to cover? Send us your suggestions at dangpodcast.com.
If you would do me a quick favor, please subscribe or rate our podcast to make it easier for others to find. Have a great week.
I'm running on nothing but faith. There's things far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping